Just can't talk yet.
And this has to fix this orange thing.
Welcome back to The Ultimate Hobbyist. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, in case you've forgotten since the last episode, because it was only one episode.
And I'm Samantha Chamberlain.
We're
And we
the
also
Chamberlains.
have
And tonight we brought along a special guest.
Beckett Chamberlain.
Beckett, you want to say hi?
Oh, hi guys.
Say it again.
Hi guys.
What do you want to say to people?
Guys, I love my chickens and I get Camden.
Okay, what do you have?
Chickens.
You have
They
chickadees.
are all girls.
And they're all girl chickens.
What's their name?
Feathery.
They're all featherly, every one of them. So we have 10 hens. We've got 5 Rhode Island Reds.
Yeah, we do have.
And we have 5 golden laced Wyandottes.
I do have to fix my.
And they're all named Featherly. So we just thought you should know about that. So I hope you enjoyed the introduction here from Beckett. It's his bedtime. We're recording pretty late at night, and he has to go lay down and watch his movie. But we wanted him to come in and tell you about kind of the topic tonight. So we're talking about our homestead, which we have dubbed Sunset Ridge Homestead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's gonna be, so we decided we're gonna do our podcast episodes in series, meaning, so this is gonna be the Sunset Ridge series. If we talk about our alcohol, which would be the whiskey or beer we make or whatever, then that'll be our something brewed series. So we're gonna try to do it that way, so you can figure out what you really want to listen to, and the title doesn't have to be too crazy. You can just see what series we're in. So that's how we plan to do it. We'll see how long that lasts. We think it's the best idea because we are all over the place, right? We said that talking about our hobbies. So tonight we're starting off the Sunset Ridge series, and we're going to talk about our homestead. We just want to talk about like kind of why we have a homestead, what it is, like what is.
Yeah.
I don't even know the definition. It's just a small farm.
Talk while I talk.
You're right. You shouldn't talk when I talk. And then we're going to talk about the animals we do have in the garden. And then we just want to kind of talk about what it would take for you to get started in a homestead, or if you wanted to start gardening or having animals. And so that way, if you're listening to this and your idea is, hey, I want to know about homesteading, should I get into it or not? Then that'll be your place. So everyone wish Beckett a good night. Good night, Beckettini. Love you.
Beckettini.
Love you, buddy.
Good night, Beckettini.
All right, so we're going to move on to the first topic. Well, before we do, we want to talk about so where we're at on social media and such. So as of right now, you can watch these episodes, and we'll have some other stuff on there as well, but you can watch our YouTube channel, which is The Ultimate Hobbyist. We also have a YouTube for the homestead. It is Sunset Ridge Homestead. I think I may have said it earlier. I can't remember. However, we don't keep it as up to date as possible, and I find that chores and just getting stuff done, building the fences, taking care of the animals, it almost becomes a hassle to grab the phone and record things. So we have a Twitter set up for both. They're not very hard to find. The Twitter for the Sunset Ridge is at Sunset Ridge OK.
Same handle for Instagram.
The same for Instagram. We're working on Instagram and whatnot for the Ultimate Hobbyist. The only reason we have them all separated, to be honest, is because the homestead is going to deal with the animals in the garden and things we do around our property, to where the hobbyist side is going to talk about everything else. So our bass fishing trips, our hunting trips. My stepdad recently invited me to go on the Trans-American Trail on a motorcycle. So that's super hobbyist, right? So that'll be here, and it won't be on the homestead stuff. But so yeah, you can find us on Twitter. That's probably the one that's updated the most. You can find the episodes on YouTube if you'd rather watch it than listen. So just some little side notes before we get started. We started a Patreon. Realistically, I would just like to be able to buy a better mic for Sam, because hers is super staticking in my ear. The Patreon will eventually, it's got one level right now. I think it's $5 a month. We'll add a bigger one eventually. If people say, hey, I would give you $1 a month, then I'll start a smaller one. We don't care. It will just be a place where we can tuck away side notes. We can do our spoofs and off the air recordings. Be a place for us to put extra content and put it behind a paywall, because I guess that's what's cool now. I don't know. But
Figuring it out.
we are figuring it out. So A Patreon is how I found one of my favorite podcasts, which is the Bowhunter Chronicles. I found it on Patreon and then joined it and then started listening to the guys talk. And then they do like a Marco Polo where we all just talk to each other, which is super cool, right? So maybe that's something we'll adopt. So shout out to the Bowhunter Chronicles. If you're an archery guy, go listen to them. They're awesome. They're located up north, but they do a lot of public land traveling. It's awesome. They talk about deer camp stuff that I love to listen to. So that's where I listen to my archery stuff at. That's really what kind of got me into archery, was that stinking podcast. All right. So the first big topic, Sam hasn't talked much, so I'm gonna make her do a lot more tonight. Is going to be why do we have a homestead? So that's kind of the question that I've been asked most, just out and about. What do you have and why do you do it? Okay, so we'll cover what we have in a little bit, but first we'll talk about why do we have a homestead. So Sam, why do we have a homestead?
Because why not? Isn't that the ultimate question to anything?
Sure.
Why not?
Yes.
It's a great way to let Beckett learn about animals and the life cycle and how things live and die. In fact, one of his new chickadees that he is very, very excited about, and he says that he's their daddy, which is both adorable and hilarious. 2 of them have died just in the 3 days that we've had them. So he gets to kind of get a grasp on death and that those animals aren't coming back. So,
And he handled it really well.
He's all boy, so we have to play pew pew and guns and superheroes and kill things and all that, but it just adds that reality factor to what death really is.
Yes, that I think that's something maybe I haven't even thought about, is that we have to tell him all the time, like, you don't put guns at people, even if it's a toy gun. Now, if we're having a Nerf battle, we can shoot the Nerf dart, right? And so we're trying to, but he's 3, he's not even 4 yet, right? So we're trying to build that level now, where what's a real gun? He has a BB gun. What's a fake one? When is it okay to point this at a human? And we just try not to do that as much as possible. Nerf battles is about it, I guess, really.
We don't even let him point those because some of his are pretty powerful, so he wouldn't want to get shot with those right now. But
right. So yeah, enjoyment of the animals is the big thing. That's homesteading. I think enjoyment of the animals is because it's non-seasonal, right? Gardening is part of our homestead, and I love gardening. I like just kind of getting out and working in the garden. I don't like pulling weeds. My dad will tell you, since I was a wee little pup, I would pretend that I was okay out there doing that crap, but I've told him, like, I hated it. I hate pulling weeds. I would much rather find another way to do it. So I leave all my plants where I can just till the weeds up every time. I can till once a week if I have to. I don't care. But the animals are the things that's non-seasonal, so we get to keep them all the time. Right now we just have goats, a donkey, and then we of course have added chickens. But like Sam said, watching Beckett kind of learn about the life cycle, learn about what's going on, adding an animal like a baby goat recently, right? That's big time in his eyes. It's a new baby animal, and it's so cute and it's so adorable, and he gets to play with it. And he doesn't play with it much because it's like, it was born last Thursday. This is
almost a week old.
Oh yeah, this is Wednesday, so almost a week old. But we also had a pregnant mama that didn't birth her kid. In fact, we lost her because of it. So he kind of gets to see all those things. We get to learn. I'm a biologist, not by trade, but by education. So I have a biology degree, and I've loved the husbandry of it all, right? Kind of mixing and matching of the animals. Like, we want to get more does, and at some point maybe another buck. I don't know if I ever want to get that big, but and then looking into cattle, right? We talk about getting into cattle, and so just looking at how that works out, and what bull and what cow produce what coloration of new calf, whatever it's going to be, whatever sex ends up being. But yeah, so that's learning, and also the discipline and kind of the work that it takes to run the homestead. So in the winter months, the discipline is getting your butt out there when it's cold and taking care of the animals, because the animal comes first. They can't really fend for themselves.
Putting the layers on to get your butt outside.
Yeah, right. Yes. But going out and ensuring that wherever they're bedding is strawed, and they have hay to eat, and they've got water, and we've had to have water tank heaters the last couple of years because it's gotten cold enough in Oklahoma to freeze them up pretty good. And for extended periods, actually. Last year, it was like February, right, when we were at stinking in the negatives for
almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was a long time, right? And then this, I mean, we just broke out of a cold snap here recently. It was 82 today or something, but
it was like 72.
Okay,
still.
whatever. It was hot. I don't like hot. Okay, I want cold.
it.
But it was, we had snow and sleet and gross right before that. So,
yeah, there's still ice piles around, even though it was 70 today. There's still
2 days in a row. So yeah, kind of the work that goes into it, the discipline, the watching things flourish. So when we bought into our goats, the 2 does that we bought were not very old. They were within a year old. So we kind of got to watch them grow up and go through their first
birthing process.
Right, yeah. First time they came into heat. Menstrual, I don't know what you call it. It's weird words.
Just stop now. Don't.
Anyway, but yes, watching them go through that first birthing cycle and watching our buck go crazy, and they stink.
Boy goats are so dirty.
They're so disgusting.
Gross.
And then 5 months later, I think it's 5 months, right? We have our first 2 babies on the ground, so that was awesome. And then watching them grow up, and then we took them to sell because that's what you do, right? We had to go sell them and make back the money to feed the other ones. So we're small enough at our little operation that it essentially pays for itself. That's it. We don't make any money off of it. We get a little bit of time to hang out with the animals, and so you get that fun and you get knowledge and experience. You don't make money.
Told you we like to learn. We have animals just for the sake of learning.
Yeah, so providing something to ourselves is another big reason. I say we don't make money, so I'm going to mention income here, and eventually we would like to be big enough that we do make an income, and we'll talk later about the things we want to add. But taking an animal to sell and selling it is still, right then you at least have money, and you've budgeted for everything you've had to feed that animal or whatever to get it there. So of some sorts, yes, there is an income there, or at least you're going and watching, like, I can raise this animal and sell it and make money.
But then it's sad because you got to get rid of the babies that you got connected with because you've had them since they were babies.
Right. So we name ours.
We kept ours way too long, so it was really hard to sell them.
Right. Yeah, they were not a year.
Close. Probably 9 months.
Probably 9 months. Yeah, about 9 months old. And we had a little buck and a little doe last time as well, so that was nice. And then, we've been trying chickens forever now, and we're going to talk chicken stories because Lord have mercy. But, eventually we'd like to get eggs out of them. And then the vegetables from the garden. Like, we planted I think it was 50 by 40 feet was the final dimensions of our garden this year. I made it that big once I could spread stuff out. We do a 3 by 3 kind of grid system for every plant so that I can till between them and not have to pick weeds as much. But, yeah, we still didn't have enough room. We actually spread to another little garden that was like a raised bed or whatever you want to call it. Oh, well. But we also put in like a bee flower garden. Like, we're trying to take care of all the animals as much as we can. Yes, so huge garden, lots of vegetables. We had way more than we could ever eat. Unfortunately, a bunch of it went to rot. We'd tried to get the feed store next door to take some of our vegetables and sell them for us. The problem was the weather got crazy last summer, so it was like super wet and cool, and all of a sudden it got hot and dry, and no more rain, and so a lot of our plants just didn't produce. We had a very weird production year for plants.
We had a lot, and then we didn't have a lot, and then we had a lot.
Yeah, I think I had something like 45 or 55 tomato plants of varying species, and
I got really lazy too. Daniel's gone for military, and I was super pregnant, and I wasn't getting out there and picking it as much as it needed to be, so that factored into our production a little bit too.
Yeah, so eventually we'd like to get meat out of the deal. Goat meat, I've had goat before. I don't know if Sam ever has, but I have definitely had goat meat before, and I love it. I think it makes great. I like it in breakfast burritos.
I'm sure it's great. And I probably have had it in breakfast burritos. I think that's what was in the ones we had in Austin that one time.
Could have been. And then also, just smoking a goat. Like, put it on a smoker, let it ride.
Smoke a goat? That sounds terrible.
Eat it at the end of the day. If you can smoke a brisket, you can smoke a goat. Pretty sure. I don't know that's true, but I'm sure it's close.
I mean, it sounds terrible, like, to taste. Just smoke a goat. Sounds like some kind of Urban Dictionary thing.
Yeah, it does. So then we also eventually went cows, and of course that's a source of meat, right? Like right now we buy most of our beef comes from other ranchers because we're kind of
Like from them
bougie in quality.
specifically, like processed, not like we went to the store and bought meat from other ranchers, but that
Right.
one
We buy a
processed.
cow, a quarter of a cow when it goes to butcher, and then we get the meat. I think
Yeah.
that means the same thing, but maybe not. So eventually we'd like that to just be us, right? You raise a cow, maybe you keep one or two cows around, and you send some off to be butchered and you feed your family. So that's kind of why we do it. We talk science as well, and we've already talked about the husbandry, but just the reproduction and the genetics and keeping track of all that stuff is fun to me. It's data, right? I kind of like data. I like
There's
seeing.
an Excel sheet for it.
There's an Excel sheet. I'm not very good at updating it. I just keep a lot of it in my brain. And then also figuring out one of them F words and then out, like caloric intake that your animals need during different seasons. That kind of, I enjoy that part. This is the research on it, I guess, right? Yes. And then I don't know if you've ever had a vegetable garden or not, but they are one giant science experiment. Absolutely 100%.
It's true.
They, with all the stuff that, plants that can or cannot be next to each other is one part of it, but then all the things that'll kill your garden. So we've had blight, we had some fungus last year that decimated. I mean, we had cucumbers out the wazoo, and all of a sudden we had no more cucumbers.
Yeah, I got our squash first, and then
Squash too, yeah. So all of our gourd, and I don't know if cucumbers are gourd, but all of our viney stuff that was supposed to produce, I guess, gourds and cucumbers, but because the zucchini died too, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So we lost all of that, and that's kind of like my favorite part of the garden. Hot peppers, and I like making
I
pickles.
was waiting for you to get the hot peppers. We had a small garden when we lived in a neighborhood, and what was it? Ghost peppers?
It's
And
always
cayennes?
ghost peppers.
Always the ghost peppers.
Always ghost peppers.
It
We still
made-
have cayennes from.
Yeah.
No, not that garden. That was 2 years ago here, right?
No, we have dried cayennes from. We had a summer where we got a bajillion peppers. We got like
I had 3
tomatoes
plants,
and
and
hundreds and hundreds of peppers.
I bet each cayenne plant made 300 plus peppers in the growth period.
But it made
Maybe close to
cost.
like, I would bet more than 500 per plant.
Probably. It was a lot. Like they just kept, even after we stopped keeping up with the garden, like they just kept going.
Yes, it was wild. So anyway, yeah. So sciencey part of it too, right?
But it made everything hot.
It did
Our
make
bell
everything
peppers
hot.
were spicy. Our jalapenos were outrageously hot.
Yes,
Crazy.
the ghost pepper near the other things, for some reason, seemed to heat it up. And I've always heard rumors, and I know I should have done my research probably before I try to make a podcast on the idea, but I've always heard of cross contamination or cross pollination, right? Like this plant will mix with that plant. That's why you don't put them beside each other, whatever. I don't know if that's true, okay, because I know genetics otherwise doesn't work like that. Species can't reproduce a lot of times outside their species, right? They have to be a subspecies or something. They got to be pretty similar. And so I don't know that your jalapeno plant can actually make your bell pepper plant any hotter, but it seems to be the case with the ghost pepper. Everything in our garden was fiery hot. That was a nightshade. Nightshades being pepper plants, I think. Maybe I'm using it wrong and y'all are going to laugh at me. I don't know. Who cares? Get on our Patreon and get on the message board and laugh at me there. Yeah. So second part of tonight's podcast, we want to talk about the animals we do have. So we've already mentioned all of them basically, but we kind of want to get in and just tell little funny stories and talk about where we got them and why we have them and yeah, what their use is, I guess.
Yeah.
So first is our goats, and we have 2 currently, 3 counting the kid. We have O'Malley, who is our big buck, and he is monstrous.
Huge. He's bigger than our donkey.
Yeah, we do have a miniature donkey, and we'll talk about Pancake in a minute. But so O'Malley's our buck, and he was a family. I actually got him from my oldest brother. He was kind of getting rid of his goat herd, so we bought it, and he had already shrunk it down. I don't know the whole story, but that's where we got our 2 does. So we got Miss Thelma Louise was one of them, and who's the other one?
Anna Marie.
and Anna Marie.
I was driving up, listening to Whiskey Myers one day, and that
That's
song
right.
was on, so she got
We named a lot
Anna
of them
Marie.
after Whiskey Myers there for a while.
And Thelma Louise lived up to her name.
Yes, she was the escape artist. She was absolute pain in the rear. There's an old saying about goats and something like how no matter how good your fence is, they're going to find a way out, right? I think the joke is that you can keep a goat locked in. That's the joke. Anyway, so we have O'Malley. O'Malley's a ginormous buck. He's over 200 pounds easily. He may be pushing 250. He stands. We'll post pictures somewhere. Okay, you can see him because he's a huge goat. We currently have Thelma Louise. She's the surviving of the two does. We lost Anna Marie to ringworm. That's what the vet told me. I've not done any research on it as of right now, but essentially she was pregnant. Her due date came around. The baby couldn't get out because the womb wouldn't allow it to. I don't know if it was the cervix that wouldn't dilate. I don't know. But essentially the kid died inside of her, gave her an infection, and with it just being a very small operation, they were like, hey, the surgery alone is going to be worth 3 times the amount of this goat. So we had to kind of make a choice there, and we chose just have her anesthetized.
She won't be able to produce any more kids.
She would never be able to have another kid.
Naturally. She'd have to have C-sections every time.
Yes. So originally he said the ringworm, if they do it once, they usually continue doing that every time. Because she's had a kid before. She had a kid last year, and everything was fine. He said if they do it every show once, then it generally continues happening. And then plus it could come into a cesarean section every single time, and that's, I mean, you're only getting $100 off this little baby anyways. So it did come down to it's money, right? Like I guess that's part of the homestead is you love your animals, but you're not so connected that you're gonna go into bankruptcy over them. I don't even like doing that for our dogs. Sam has kind of taught me that we will spend money on our dogs. We have a free mutt, and he's had multiple $300 surgeries. I feel like now because
one.
a 300 plus, and then we had to have him fixed, and then there was another one.
He had
his ear and his neck.
His neck was the 300.
Cooper's our dog. Cooper's beautiful. He's a 55-pound beagle.
Not because he's obese.
No, he's a freaking chunk of muscle. He actually is up to 63 pounds recently.
He's been doing good.
Because he gained some weight.
We call him a beagle on steroids, though, because he's just bulky.
Yeah, but he's a beautiful dog. He's awesome. He's pain in my rear, too. Anyway, he started getting the dog fights recently, and we think it was to protect our other dog. Sam's going to get sad. We had a little Jack Russell Terrier named Rudy, and Rudy got up to be like 172 years old.
He would have been 16 this weekend.
Yeah, so this weekend being the one that's...
Weekend.
Oh, yeah, last weekend. So, sad story. Anyway, so Cooper's awesome. So we talked about our goats. We got the new kid. Okay, a new kid was born the 24th of February, which was last Thursday as we're recording this, which will be 2 Thursdays ago as you were hearing this. Recording and then posting it later is still a thing to me. It's weird. At least this time it's only like a couple days. I do another podcast for the football, and sometimes we record 2 or 3 or 4 weeks early. We made a Super Bowl prediction podcast.
Didn't it go so
and
well?
Then we did it before the divisional round, and all of our team, I mean, we picked Buccaneers versus Bills was the Super Bowl. Bucks win it. Brady continues playing. And instead, they both got beat in the divisional round, and Brady retired. So there you go.
All around wrong.
Yes. All right, so moving on to our chickens.
Hold on. Can we talk about their names?
Who?
The goats.
Okay,
They
so
had cool names.
right, we have O'Malley, we have Thelma Louise, we did have Anna Marie because of Whiskey Myers.
So to name their kids, we always take a part of their name and then something that's going on in the environment. So Anna Marie's or Thelma Louise's first kid was Ida Lou because she was born on the Ides of March, and
That's
we
right.
took Lou from Louise.
Yep.
And then Anna Marie's first kid was a boy, and Anna Marie came from a Whiskey Myers song, so his first name was Whiskey, and it was a full moon, so it was Whiskey Moon.
That's right. So
We're still trying to name this new kid.
we haven't really got to spend a lot of time with him, to be honest. We've been very busy.
He's really
and
pretty, though.
He's gonna be a very pretty kid.
Pretty kid.
Yeah, so we haven't named him. So maybe we'll just put it on Twitter and see what we should name him.
Has to involve Thelma Louise and probably ice or snow or cold.
Right. Because it was freezing out when he was born. All right, so now we'll move on to chickens.
Okay, I'll let you.
We bought chickens again
Sunday.
Listen,
Maybe we should just do dates.
yes, it was last Sunday, which was the
27th.
27th, I think, of February of 2022. But if you go to Tractor Supply, number one, Beckett calls it Tractor Fly. He always has. Okay, he was big into
We
airplanes at
always
the
will now.
time, and now it'll be Tractor Fly for us forever. But if you go and there's chickens there, it is very hard to leave without chickens. We've been wanting to start our chicken group again anyways. Last year, we tried to order a bunch of specialty stuff. So we wanted like 4 of this species or breed or whatever you call them in chickens. I don't know. Anyway, 4 of this and 4 of that and 4 of this and 4 of that. We wanted 2 hens on this one and we wanted a rooster of this. And we had this super grand scheme. And what happened was the people, not the people we ordered from, we ordered through our feed store, through our friends, and they're wonderful. But the place where they were getting them, like all the chickens were dying. I mean, our first group
Before they got to us.
yeah, there was a whole bunch. But the very first group we got was around, I want to say like 18 or something, right?
Yeah.
Was it 18 both times?
It was 12 to 18 both times.
Because it was 36 total, right, that we lost. So we'll just call it 18 each time. So the first time we had 18 different chickens.
Variety.
Yeah, and it was kind of a wild variety. We didn't really handpick it. We just bought what was on hand. They all died. And some of them died to weird causes, but we also had video camera of what looked like a giant raccoon got into the pen. We have a chicken coop built. We did not have a top on it. We had not gotten that far, but we have a concrete floored chicken coop out there it's like a small house. So they have plenty of space. They've got roosting in that. But anyways, so these chickens, they grew up pretty big. And then they decided to start roosting outside. They would not go back in their house at night, so we couldn't lock them up. They were fine during the day, but at night, they started disappearing one by one until eventually they were all gone. And we went out there and there was no more chickens. Like I said, we did have film of a giant animal, looked like a raccoon at the time. At one point had gotten in and killed some.
Yep.
So we thought coons were killing our chickens.
That was round 1.
Round 1. So round 2 was the last one, right?
I think we've done this 3 times.
Maybe.
Yeah, because we got the ones that were pretty big. Like we were excited. They were getting close to where they might be
And they
starting to
just
lay
vanished.
eggs, and then one by one they disappeared. And then we had the problems with all the chicks dying. Like
Yeah.
they weren't surviving. They weren't thriving, and it was from the shipping. Like they weren't shipping them. They were
They were
getting too
dehydrated
cold,
is what
they
it
were
was,
getting
right?
Dehydrated. They were taking too long. Maybe some of that was the shipping issues with COVID. I don't know, but it was awful.
So this last time, we got a very large amount of birds out there. And we had several turkeys of different species because we wanted to release them on the farm. And looking back, that's probably a terrible idea, but whatever. I would have eaten them anyway. I'm really good at smoking turkey, so. So turkeys, we got a lot of different chickens. That was our super specialty order. We had everything handpicked.
My sweet silky chickens are finally starting to look like silky chickens.
Yeah, so anyway, they started getting pretty big. And we were sitting on the back porch one night, and I look over into
Looking at our beautiful sunset.
Yeah, to the north of our house. So we were looking over our house. Our back porch faces the sunset, huge valley. It's beautiful. I just happened to look over to the north, and there's a stinking fox. And it's got one of our turkeys in its mouth that's dead and just hanging, drooping on both sides.
Like it's meant to be.
And so I decided to grab an AR and go looking for it. I did find its den. We didn't find anything that night, but we did get a live trap up the next night, and they left one carcass. They ate every bird in that stinking.
And one ended up in our garden somehow.
They buried one in the
opposite side of
garden.
the house.
Yes, they buried one in the garden to come back and get it later, I guess. We tilled it up like 3 or 4 days later.
Yeah, it's gross.
So we did end up trapping and killing one of the foxes. And we never got the rest of them. So we're just hoping they stay away this time. We're going to put up electric fence. We're going to build a more sturdy chicken coop. We've got like plans this time to take care of the animals that because we've lost so many to just random stuff. I mean, a fox is not that random, but. All right, enough about chickens. Well, in the 2 that we've lost already here, Beckett did learn some lessons from them, and that was
he was jumping into the coop.
He was jumping dangerous. A bunch, and I actually stepped on one. I actually just had my heel up, and it walked under my heel. I didn't know, of course. And as I leaned back to move, I just crushed it, and it died in 2 minutes or something. And so I tried to hide it from him because I didn't want to explain it right then. But he found the bird, and I was like, all right, well, let's talk about it. I was like, yep, this bird died.
Here we go.
I stepped on it. And when you step on these birds, they die. And so he stopped jumping. He learned a lesson pretty quick, which was good. And then yesterday we just went out to check on them, and for whatever reason, one of them was dead, right? That's that kind of baby chicken thing. You lose some just randomly. Could have been it didn't drink enough water or whatever. I don't know. And of course, Beckett found it too because he was the first one into the pen.
Check on his babies.
Check on his babies because he's daddy chicken.
He is daddy chicken.
And he found it. And so once again, we got to kind of use that life and death thing going on the farm.
And taking care of stuff, the responsibility to it.
Yeah.
Really been working on responsibility with him. So him taking to wanting to be Chickadee's daddy is potentially a good thing. We'll see.
Yeah. He has to give them a kiss, a fake kiss, and then like pet them all and a big air hug every
Before he goes to
morning.
school.
Yeah, every morning before we can go to school. So the last animal we have here right now is Pancake. And he is our miniature donkey. So Pancake we bought from the neighbors, who's the same people that own the feed store, who's the same people we got the house from when we moved here. And they've raised miniature donkeys for a while, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Seems like they've had it for a while because they've got 3 generations on the female side.
Yeah.
And then they
Oh,
just
granny.
mix the males in, like always swapping males. And so we just happened to go over there, and of course they have what do you call them?
Stall?
No, I mean, what's a group of baby donkeys called?
Oh, I don't know. I'll Google it.
A herd?
Probably.
We're going to Google it. A brood is what I'm going to go with for now.
That's chickens, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Or a flock for chickens. You can do either. Anyway, and Beckett kind of fell in love with them because I don't know if you've ever seen a miniature donkey, but they're small. And so when they're babies,
So cute.
they're even smaller and they are adorable. So he got to pet like 3 or 4 of them, and one of them was really pretty, and that's the one we got, which was Pancake. And so we actually have a picture around here somewhere that with Beckett before he even owned Pancake.
There's room.
Okay. And we named it Pancake because it ate pancakes with us every Saturday morning around here. Maybe Sunday morning. I can't remember.
One day of the weekend.
Usually Saturday morning is biscuits and gravy, and Sunday is pancakes. That's how we do it. That's how we get up. We spend time as a family in the mornings on the weekends. But that's usually brunch, by the way, as much as possible.
Absolutely. Try to make it brunch.
The kids have not let that happen as much.
Not at all.
And we'd always make to me pancakes, and so we'd take them out, and Pancake would eat them with us. So it was awesome. He can be an ass, literally, and literally.
A drove.
A drove
Group
o'
of
donkey.
donkeys is a drove.
See, we're all learning things together. So, Pancake chases our goats around really bad, and I've read a lot online about it, and apparently donkeys generally you need 2 of them so they can play together because they play rough. So they bite and pull and tackle and hit them with their heads and all this stuff. We have one because that's kind of part of it, right? You just have one, and he's out there to be a protector. I've watched him run the fox off since we found out about the fox. We've never had a coyote issue. The last time we left the kids out there with them when we had the 2 baby goats, and they never had an issue. Right now we have mama and kid locked up in
a separate pen, not just like locked in a room.
They're in a room in the house. So I thought, I can't say we, but I thought he just hated him. Like, you're in my way. Like, maybe he played, but he would play really rough sometimes, and with the does and everything.
But keep in mind, our buck is as big as he is, so
he just doesn't have the muscle strength, right? Like, he's got the mass.
But he doesn't have that mane with the big neck. So
right.
It doesn't go as well for him.
So last year, he had actually peeled all the hair and skin off of O'Malley's neck from biting him. And there was a collar there, and we thought that maybe, and I still think so. I think that was a target because it was red, and he was either grabbing it and pulling on it or biting it at the top, like at the top of the back of his neck.
Ripping hair out with it.
Anyway, he was very sore there for a while, but he's got over it. So anyway, I tell you all that to say that we thought O'Malley we thought Pancake hated all the donkeys.
All the goats.
But I'm sorry. Look at me. We thought that Pancake hated all the goats, but when I took them all to the vet the other day, I left Pancake behind. And he was so sad. And when I got home, I had to keep him up. So we had the one in this size, so she stayed there. And I brought the other one back, and I locked her up so she could have her baby on her own. And then O'Malley, I put him in a separate pen for a little while too.
But it's right next to where they normally stay.
Yes, and they could not be separated. Like they were as close to that fence as they could possibly get, and being best friends. It's actually 2 fences, so it's like a chain link and then our goat fence, and they're probably 9 inches apart, maybe. And they were like leaning into the fences to try to touch each other. So it was super adorable.
Side, and it was very cold, so the donkey could have very easily just went and got in the stall with the heat lamp and been perfectly free from the wind and everything, because the wind chill was cold. I guess it's when the cold front came in, so it was miserable. Because not only was it going from, again, 70 down to 30s that night, along with awful wind chills, but it had been warm, so it makes that cold feel extra terrible, I feel like. And nope, he wouldn't leave his side.
It was really adorable, and I'm glad that we know that at least, like we use Beckett's BB gun to shoot Pancake all the time, because number one, I'm doing it from 100 yards, maybe not that far, 50 yards plus. I gotta put some arch on that thing sometimes to really get it out there. Anyway, we're having to shoot him to like get him off the goats and get him to leave him alone. But
usually just the sound of it.
The sound gets him now.
We're not abusive.
Right.
Disclaimer, no animals were harmed.
So future additions for our homestead. Number one, I want more does. I would like to get more goats, because there is a little bit of a source of income there, and it would just be so that we could better what we have. Right. We need another little not hay barn, but another little cow lean-to thing for them to be under, like a shelter. Okay, we have one. Cost us almost $1,000 to build that thing.
Because someone's bougie and made the whole thing out of wood. Like what, 2x8s, 2x12s? What's out there?
Different, yeah. 2x8s, 2x12s. I just re-engineered like a $2,500 thing from a place on the internet, reverse engineered it, and then built it, and we paid $1,000. So I saved us $1,500. You're welcome. But it's mobile. I can pull it around. It's on the 2 main beams on the bottom, or the only things. They're skids, right? And then I've got holes drilled in them, so I can put a chain through, and I can move it if I need to. We haven't had to, but I can. Also, our ground is very rocky because we're on top of a freaking hill, and you're not digging holes here, period, at all. So there's no way I'm putting a barn into the ground.
In which case, you can dig as many holes as you want, because your superpower is digging. That's
true. So more does, just to increase our income some, and I mean, it's kind of our main thing right now. So I really enjoy it. I think O'Malley's supposed to be able to. I almost said cover. I'm going to say cover anyway. I think that might be the term for it. He should be able to cover something like 52 goats.
What do you call service?
We'll call it service. He should be able to service 50. I think it's 52 does is what I read for a goat his size and of his breed. He's a huge Nubian. So if you don't know what Nubians are, they're giant milk goats. They're not always the biggest, but they're pretty big. And then people mix them with a boar goat to increase the meat of the boar goat, and it gives them a little bit like size. Yeah, it gives them size. Anyway, I would like to add a greenhouse eventually, because we want to start like right now putting seeds, like getting our plants going, so that we can. Yeah. Oh, I think the army. I'll be gone.
So he'll be back.
That's true. And then bees. We've always wanted to have bees. We've had bats before, but never bees.
I've had bats. They lived in our house.
So creepy. So creepy. But we want bees.
We're telling the bat story now.
Okay. So the bat story. So at the end of the garage, not the garage, the attic, right, of a house, you have the little the slats. They're slanted, so the house can kind of breathe. Sometimes there's a fan there, sometimes there's not. Huh?
Vents?
Yeah, they're vents. Right, it's a vent. It has a name.
Vent.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it a vent. If you're out there and you build homes and you're like, yeah, that's called this thing, you moron. That's fine. But it luckily had wire in it, very, very small, like 1/4 inch squared wire, whatever. And a screen. That's the word I was looking for. And so these bats, they would work their way. So like the slatted wood was away from that screen by probably an inch. So they would go work their way up through the little slats and then perch at the top of that. And so it was kind of crazy because we were just up there getting something out of the attic one night and you could hear them. And so we shined a flashlight over there and there's, I don't know, freaking 15 bats in this little
That's awesome.
12-inch area. And so they stayed around. They stayed around all winter, actually. I assume the heat from the attic made it feasible for them. And also that part of Broken Arrow, there's 1 trillion mosquitoes all the time because
Yes,
we were right on the river. Yeah, and so they ate a lot of mosquitoes.
It's cute that he thought that was the bat story I wanted to tell. So there was a bat in our garage one day, I guess, and I didn't realize it. And the
I don't know the story.
door from the garage to the kitchen had come open, and I hadn't shut the garage door yet. So a bat decides to make its way into the house. Well, I'm like totally freaked out by it because there's a bat in my house and it's flying around the kitchen, and I'm like, oh crap, what do I do? He was in the living room or another room, so I run in there and I'm like, there's a bat in the house. And he's trying to figure out why I'm freaking out. And he's like, what do you mean there's a bat in the house? So I said, it's huge. Come look at it. It's giant. It's the biggest bat. And he thought I was being, I don't know, exaggerating a bit. And so he comes in there and he thinks he's just going to wave it out because at the time it looked small. It had perched. There's a bat perch on the ceiling. Like, I feel like this inverted perch.
Yeah, it had.
But it
was hanging from the ceiling.
It was hanging from the ceiling, and it, had its wings all closed in, and it was all tucked in, cozy, looking all tiny. So he thought I was just being ridiculous with my explaining of how big this bat was. And then he goes to try to move it, and it spreads its wings out huge, and I think he let out a little bit of a squeal. It made me very happy.
I did scream a little bit. It caught me off guard of just how big it was, and I know that. I don't know how big bats are supposed to be. I thought, but the thing was massive. And of course, we were just trying to get it in a pillowcase.
At that point, we decided to grab a blanket. So I had one blanket covering so it wouldn't fly into the rest of the house.
Right.
And he had one like trying to shoo it out the door that it
We got it out eventually somehow. It works. But bats. Anyway. So the last part, we're going to kind of breeze through this because, we don't want to make these episodes too long and stuff. But we just want to talk about if you thought you might want to have a homestead, what might it take to get started? So I don't even know that there's a land requirement. Okay, so if you're trying to do cows, you can kind of look and depending on what grass you have and how much nutritional value there's out there. You'll have some people tell you 1 head per 5 acres or something, 10 acres in some cases. Okay? It depends on. If you live in the desert, you don't have grass. But with goats, it's a little different. I think you can get more in a smaller space. I have seen people on YouTube that have 1 acre and they'll run like an entire. I think they had a 6 goat, like a milk goat operation running off that beast. Do not recommend. But we have 3 acres about, and I feel like we could hold at least a cow, maybe another, feeding them quite often, and then we've got some land right next to the house that we could use to feed to. So we would do that if we ever got cows. But with goats, we have plenty for what we have. I think we could add probably 3 or 4 more goats and have no issue with feed, with grazing basically in the same amount of time we have right now. Because eventually the grass just dies and they eat what's left. But all summer we have very plush pasture for them to eat. I do purple top turnips. So they have an extra thing out there that it'll last for a little while. I just kind of sow that in, and then the
tree line clear.
Yes, they do keep the trees very clear. So size of your land, I don't think is as important. However, you do need a safe place to keep them, and that means you need to keep them put away.
A secure place.
Yes.
Fence has to be sufficient.
Fencing is very big. You need to use goat fence. Okay, so if you use horse fence, the squares are smaller at the bottom and bigger at the top, and that's climbable is what they call it for goats, right? So they can climb up, and then they can get stuck even. Okay, so they can climb and then they get stuck up there. If you use goat fence, it's all 4x4 squares. I'm pretty sure they don't climb it. I thought that was crazy until we used it, and they just really don't climb it. They will perch on top of it sometimes, like they'll get up to get a tree and then kind of fall onto it and use it. But just moving O'Malley the other day into the chain link, he immediately started climbing the chain link. It was just the weirdest thing. So, and I've seen Thelma Louise do it in her little chain link prison over there too. So make sure you're using goat fence.
It's not prison, it's the maternity ward.
Correct. 4 feet tall at minimum. We have a section that's 3 feet, but it has iron fence there as well. So it's like they can't ever get enough weight on it to move it because it's in the ground and it's all welded together. So it's fine. It's like a big pipe fence. The sections that are out on T-posts, though, is all 4 feet tall. Make sure you pull it tight. Make sure you know what you're doing, or at least watch a YouTube video or 7. Same thing with gates. You're going to have to either get the goat wire gate, or I used a cattle panel to close in old gates until eventually I have a time to replace them, which is not right now. And it's worked a while. Remember that if these animals get out, they eat everything. So what we ran into is there's like a community garden that's literally right outside of our back fence on that end. And I actually was away at drill weekend, I'm pretty sure. And I got a text from our friend Rob, and he was like, "Hey, dude, so-and-so text me, and your goats are eating up the community garden." Okay, so if they had wanted to, they could have probably taken some kind of legal action. I don't think they did enough damage that day. They had gotten over there and pushed them into our yard and locked them up, and everything was well. But you have to understand that someone could get mad at you if your goat eats their whole vegetable garden,
or if they hit them with their car.
Right. So there's all that legal stuff, right? So there's a million reasons to keep your goats put in your fence. The main reason is so that it's safe for them. Give them a place to stay. They have to have some shade out of the sun in the summer, and they need a wind block for wherever your prevalent winds are when it's cold. Obviously, ours are out of the north. I'm sure most people's are. We have a southwesterly wind in Oklahoma all the time, and we don't mind blocking that. That's not an issue. When it rains, the way that it's put in there keeps the rain off them pretty good. And it's deep enough that they can get to the back and get out of the rain completely. However, they need a place to stay out of the north wind. Now that I think about it, probably everyone has north wind when it's cold. Right.
Yeah, I was wondering where you were going with that, but I just let it ride.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be judgmental.
You're the biologist here. I'm just...
Maybe you live in the...
here to support you.
What if it's from Antarctica?
That's why I let it ride. Thought maybe we're having penguin farms.
Boom. Penguin farms. Do it. Water and food. Pretty common sense stuff, but you have to understand that unless you have a pond that's fed, there's no bears down there. That's why it's Antarctic. The Antarctic Circle means no bears.
No bears.
Arctic, bears. Antarctic, no bears. So there's no bears in the South Pole.
Okay. Penguin farms.
Anyway, food and water. Figure out what you need to feed them. We use a mixture of stuff. So I actually use 20%. Like creep, I think is what they call it. So it's 20% protein cubes, and then, man, we use a bunch of stuff.
We'll make sure they have a well-rounded diet.
Yeah, alfalfa pellets. I mean, just a ton of stuff, and we don't feed that year round.
It's a donkey.
So we usually give it to them like once a week ish during the summer, and because there's a lot of grass out there, and they stay healthy. And then in the wintertime, we feed them. If it gets real cold and it's snow on the ground and they can't graze, we feed them every day. Sometimes twice a day.
They always have hay out there too.
We always keep them with hay. Yep. And then the biggest thing is going to be the ability to learn, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to find out new stuff. You're going to have to go research things like, can I feed my Christmas tree to my goats?
You can.
And some of them can, right? It depends on the species of the tree and the species of the goat. So there's things like that. What can I give to the goats food wise? Like we give our scraps a lot of times, right? Because it's just an extra treat for them, and we don't have to throw food away and let it rot, whatever.
Also, if you think your goats had a baby or about to have a baby, trust your instincts when it's not going well.
Yeah.
If we would have got her to do that sooner, it might have been a different story, but
we at least could have kept the kid. I think she was gone either way, but maybe they could have cut the kid out. But by the time we saw any fluid at all, I don't know if he had been already died. I don't know. That's part of learning, right? We know now.
Because we waited a couple days to take her because we thought maybe she was just having a long labor type thing.
Right.
But she wasn't acting distressed in any way.
And another vet had told us that she had probably already had the kid and everything was fine. And so we just thought like a coyote would run off with it.
We searched.
Yeah.
That was another day Pancake was being an ass. Kind of bite my shoulder. And
then the last big thing is just make sure that you have a love for other living things. So if you have, I hate to say this because I mean I've seen it, but if you're just going to get animals so that it looks cool, or you can claim that you have this homestead, and then you let them not have enough food or not water them or not take care of them medically, medical bills can get expensive, right? You've got to
Well, if they don't
you
care,
got to get them
take
shots
care.
all the time.
Probably not take them to get medical care.
Right. So, just make sure that you love the things that you're getting. Okay, and want to. You don't have to like. It has to be another kid of yours, but
You want to at least care for it.
it's more. It's basically like your family dog, except you don't let it in the house unless you
Yeah.
do. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Now, this episode might have even ran longer than I thought it was going to.
Goat chicken's pancake shoot.
Right. She said she was going to make that joke because Beckett has been doing paper, rock, scissors, shoot for the last when he runs. That's when he does it. When he's going to run away from you, like he wants to race you. That's his turbo button now.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah. Paper, rock, scissors, shoot, and then he runs fast. Anyway, we still don't have a sponsor, so I once again want to talk about the Patreon. It is not fully set up. There's one level. It's $5. It gets you a shout out. We'll add to it. We want to do all the merch and all that cool stuff. I think they offer that on Patreon. We're not that well versed. So if you want to go on there and give us $5 a month, awesome. We don't expect it. I want to just talk and have fun and talk about our hobbies. If you do, that's great. You'll buy Samantha a mic that doesn't put static in my ears for hours on end. Yeah. Anything else from you, love?
Nope.
She's been way off the screen all night. When you watch this on YouTube, you're gonna be like, oh, why is she halfway covered up? It's because we have giant chairs.
Yeah, they don't stick very close together.
Oh, look at that.
Well, really, the mic was falling and I didn't want to make the creak sound that it's gonna make if I move it.
Creak. It's like
Not bad.
a babbling brook.
Babbling brook. Yeah.
Is that what a creek sounds like?
Nope, different kind of creek.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for joining us on our wild adventure. We hope you've enjoyed tonight. Whenever you listen to its episode, this is technically episode number 1. We got it. It's out there. We have an introduction. We have an episode. We will get better at this. I promise. We hope that you continue to come back and listen to us ramble about hobbies. So we will talk to you the next time on The Ultimate Hobbyist. Toodaloo.